The IRMA is as soon as we hit the limit, we now pay more for Medicare 2 years in the future. So it comes as a delayed surprise, right? So we want to be careful of that. Again, being proactive is knowing that's coming and not accidentally bumping into it. We've met with a lot of folks who haven't been taking advantage of these new tax cuts yet. And I really encourage you, the senior tax deduction starts this year, ends in 2028. I think it's a good opportunity for folks to kind of rebalance their tax picture. You've worked really hard to get to this point, right? If we're talking about excess RMDs, that means you saved a lot of money. So great job. Let's make sure that you're the most efficient with it, right? So we need to think through that long-term duration. If it means passing money on to the next generation, let's look for tax-efficient ways to do so and not leave our children with a tax burden in the future as well.
Welcome to The Relax. It's Retirement Podcast with your host, Josh Leonard, where we talk about transitioning into retirement with intent. I'm Wendy McConnell. Well, hello there, Josh. We've had a day.
Oh, tech issues galore getting hooked up here. So it has to be a good one then, right? I mean,
Yes.
It's just necessity at this point.
Let's dive in.
Technology is a miracle, right?
Until it doesn't work.
When it works well, right? So, yep. So it's nearing the end of the year. Wendy, you got some flannel on too. It's flannel season. It's a little chilly out now. First frost, all that kind of stuff. But the year's not over yet, right? So
No.
Today we're going to talk about some year-end tax planning moves. Some things that are still in your control, and some moves that we may want to make before the end of the year. We'll talk through those last-minute RMDs, charitable giving, some costly mistakes to avoid, talk a little bit about Roth conversions, and some things to do if you have the good saver tax problem.
The good saver tax problem. Oh, I wonder if I have that.
We can talk about it more. We did a whole episode on it, Wendy.
Oh, I just don't remember. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I'll remind you. And for listeners, too, you'll get a little reminder there.
Okay,
So,
good.
That's it. Today, we're going to talk about things that are intentional, right? We want to be intentional about our moves before the year end so we can retire with confidence. We can be confident in our retirement plan, not reactive.
So let's get to it.
Okay. First up, why does year-end planning matter, right? Well, we have a lot of stuff we have to do by the end of the year, right? We got to set up all the decorations. We still got to cook a turkey, right? We have a bunch of stuff to do. In terms of financial planning, year-end is always a cutoff, right? We have certain tax rules. The tax year ends at the end of the calendar year. If we look, a lot of these thresholds reset January 1st, and we have some short-term tax laws. So we don't want to cram everything in the last minute, but we need to think through these things before the end of the year.
Okay.
We always have uncertainty leading into the year ahead. We've done quite a few episodes now on goal planning for the next year, all that kind of stuff. This is the time to start cleaning up from what is this year. So that's why year-end planning matters, right? We want to think through what space we still have left and make through some of those final decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Internally with our clients, one of the things that we're doing now is cleaning up those RMDs, right? Maybe we talked to a client earlier this year. They have that required minimum distribution, that forced distribution from their retirement accounts. And they thought, I don't need it yet. Maybe we'll let it grow a little bit longer, right? Maybe we'll let the money grow. Maybe it was earlier in the year where we had some volatility around tariffs. We need to take that out by the end of the year. So if you're 73 or older, you're required to take that distribution. If this is your first year, if you turn 73 this year, you could technically wait till next year. But to me, that's a tax decision because then you have to take two. And if that makes sense to you, then great. We could go down that route. But for most folks, it doesn't, right?
Well, it used to be 70 and now it's 73. So I know that's a good thing.
Well, it was 70 and a half, right? Because we got to
sorry.
count half birthdays, which was awesome. Because when you turn 70, you just can't wait for 70
You
and a
start
half,
doing halves
right?
again, like when you were a kid.
Uh-huh. And briefly, it was 72 as well. So a couple changes quickly. But we can do with our RMDs, QCDs, right? RMDs are the forced distributions. QCDs are Qualified Charitable Distributions. So maybe it's near the end of the year. You still need to take some money out of that IRA account. We could send it to the charity as well. So we're getting close to Thanksgiving and the holiday season here. Maybe there's a charity or a cause that's near and dear to you, or maybe with some of the recent cuts in the government, maybe there's some causes that you would like to push forward. You could donate that money, and as long as it goes to a 501c3, a qualified charity, it's a non-taxable event. So if you have to take the money out of your IRA, but you don't really need it for your own purposes, maybe you want to donate some of that money, it's a good tax move for you. It's a non-taxable event, but still works towards your RMD.
So you don't have to, you can do partial, I would assume. You can give a portion of it to charity and then take a portion for yourself. And whatever you take for yourself is the only thing that will be taxed, correct?
That is correct. Yep. So there are limits. We can only do up to $100,000 each. So if your RMD is that big,
I
or
wanted to do 300.
I'm sure there's lots of charities that are
Okay.
raising their hand on this one. We'll take it, but for most folks, their RMDs aren't that much. Maybe if you have $20,000 left in an RMD for this year, maybe you want to donate about $5,000 of that. Maybe it becomes a strategic tax move too, right? If we look, some of the phase outs that we now have, which we'll talk about a little bit further with the new senior deduction, increased cost of Medicare, maybe it makes sense for you to donate a little bit more to stay under some of those thresholds too. So this is where your tax plan comes into play, right? Let's look and see if we have some room in our tax bracket, or if we're right up against a tax barrier, we might want to donate a little bit more to charity, as it might help us a little bit as well.
Okay.
If we don't need the money, we donate it as much as we want to, what are we going to do with the money after, right?
What are we going to do?
I could throw in a 529 plan plug here too, Wendy, right? Could we do
it
that?
just wouldn't be an episode of Relax It's Retirement without talking about a 529
Right?
plan.
Don't forget your grandkids. Bill and Cindy Leonard. My parents, we talk about this a lot, but my parents, around the holidays and for the kids' birthdays, always do kick in a little bit towards their 529 plan, which for our family is very important, right? That education fund, we are sure will be used one way or another. Up to certain limits too. Once our kids are older, if they get that full scholarship and don't need that 529 money, right? That would be great.
That would be.
We could do a Roth conversion for some of that money too. So there's a couple options there. If you're not in that scenario and you think you might need the money later, you could look to reinvest that money, right? We can look for some tax efficient options. What we don't want to do is reinvest the money and cause ourselves another tax issue down the line, right? Sometimes in mutual funds or dividend paying stocks, we might get income from those or gains without actually needing them, right? So this might be a case for investing in things like individual stocks or maybe municipal bonds, where we have a little bit more tax control within the portfolio. For most of our clients, we utilize our TMS or tax management system now, where we can set a budget on those taxable accounts for the following year. That way we don't get a surprise come tax time.
Okay.
So that's one good option for those excess RMDs.
Yeah, the surprise, you don't want a surprise when it comes to taxes.
No, you already have this RMDs where if it's extra, right, you have what we call the good saver tax problem, right?
Okay.
Where you've saved too much in your qualified retirement accounts that the amount you're forced to take out is over your income needs, right? So it's pushing you into a higher tax bracket unnecessarily.
Mm-hmm.
It's the good saver tax problem, right? Because you save too much, right?
Right.
But we want to handle that. So for most of the folks that we meet with the good saver tax problem, their goal is to hopefully pass that money on, right? Maybe to their kids or the next generation, whatever that looks like in your family. If we want to pass that money in an IRA on to our kids, we have to be careful. We have a 10-year clock once they inherit that money to distribute all that money. So your tax bracket might be here, but if your kids pass away and they're earning good money at that time, they might be in an even higher tax bracket. So the tax efficiency of that money would decrease. Going back to the RMDs there, if you're taking money out, you have to pay taxes on it. That is, unless we're donating the money, right? If we receive the money, we have to do it. In the state of Pennsylvania, there's another issue with giving money to your kids, and that is the PA state inheritance tax. So while we might do things like Roth conversions, or we buy those stocks and we're going to hold them because we know there's a step up in basis if our kids inherit that, right? If we buy it for $1, they inherit it at $100. We would have sold the day before death with that $99 gain. We would have paid capital gains. The kids don't have to under current law. But the state of Pennsylvania still has a 4.5% inheritance tax for you to pass that money along to your kids.
Okay.
So one of the other things that you could do with those excess contributions is buy life insurance if you're healthy. Life insurance is a tax-free death benefit to your kids. So if you're not going to use the money, right, we can use that as leverage to pass it on to the next generation. And then we avoid the 4.5% PA state inheritance tax as well. So a little bit more efficiency there. Those are some great tools that we've seen a lot of clients start to utilize now if they're clear that the end goal is to pass the money on to the next generation. Some of those life insurance policies, too, have great features like access if you were to have long-term care needs as well. So we could access some of the cash value of the policy while you're still alive to help cover those costs as well. So many times for folks, when we think that we have enough for retirement, right, we're in that good saver problem. One of the uncertainties is the future cost of medical care, right? Especially if we're in a nursing home or something for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to be cautious there. Life insurance is a great alternative. Again, pass on to the next generation, and a bit of a Swiss Army knife that we could use that money for long-term care if needed.
Mm-hmm.
Most people like to get tax-free money, right? So we can use life insurance. If we're not quite at that RMD stage, one of the things we might want to look at before the end of the year is Roth conversions. So we have a new senior deduction, $6,000 for single filers, 65 plus, $12,000 if you're both 65 plus and married filing joint. That additional deduction allows some more space for things like Roth conversions. We met with a client earlier this year who is claiming Social Security, working part-time, and she's pretty frugal. So she is able to save most of her wages to put into a Roth IRA. Now, her income's low enough that she still gets a portion of the Savers Credit. The Savers Credit is a credit to help incentivize low-income Americans to put more into retirement plans. That can be an IRA or a Roth IRA. In her case, she was below the limit where she gets 50% of that contribution. She gets that money back via a tax credit. We used some of that tax credit to then also do a Roth conversion. So for her, she was able to get about $9,000 into a Roth IRA without paying any taxes for the year.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll take that plan.
That's worth doing some tax planning for, right? She had more space now. If we were under the old tax laws, she wouldn't have had that much space. So let's take advantage of those temporary cuts.
Okay. Sounds good.
Alternately, we might be near some limits. So we want to be careful. If we're doing Roth conversions, if we're taking some extra money out of our accounts, maybe to fund those 529 plans for the grandkids, whatever it might be, we need to be careful that we're not hitting limits. We've talked in the past about IRMA limits. These are the limits where we start to pay more for our Medicare. It is not a phase out. So with the new senior deduction, we have a phase out for those single filers. It starts at $75,000. For joint filers, it's $150,000. After those limits, we start paying 6% back on every dollar above that. So it's a phase out. It slowly eats away that deduction. The IRMA is as soon as we hit the limit, we now pay more for Medicare 2 years in the future. So it comes as a delayed surprise, right? So we want to be careful of that. Again, being proactive is knowing that's coming and not accidentally bumping into it.
Mm-hmm.
If we are thinking about taking a little more money out at the end of the year or doing a Roth conversion, we want to watch that as one of those limits. When we think through our tax brackets as well, if we're looking at filling up a lower tax bracket, let's say like the 12% tax bracket, as soon as we go over that, we jump to the 22% tax bracket.
That's quite a hike, man.
That's quite a bit up. Now, it doesn't change all the other money, right? It's only those dollars above, but we want to be conscious of that, especially if we're going to be in a lower tax bracket in the future, right? The idea of taxation in retirement, keep it as level as possible and not have big, lumpy years. So we want to think through that. I think that there's a lot of opportunity. We've met with a lot of folks that have come to our recent classes that we've been hosting through AFIA. We'll link a landing page for those upcoming classes in the Pittsburgh area in the show notes. But we've met with a lot of folks who haven't been taking advantage of these new tax cuts yet. And I really encourage you, the senior tax deduction starts this year, ends in 2028. I think it's a good opportunity for folks to kind of rebalance their tax picture a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's important to do that for sure.
Yeah, I think we see most Americans have saved the easy way, which is through your 401k and IRA. But that doesn't give us much tax flexibility. So we want to watch that. We want to watch our IRMA thresholds,
Right.
all of these things together, right?
Yeah, I think that, I've had a little bit like an IRA or a 401k from a former position that I've been, wanting to turn into Roth. And here's the thing with the Roth.
Mm-hmm.
You never want to do it. You never like, gee, I want to pay all those taxes now. But, you do it when it's the most, beneficial for you, like you were saying, in the 12% tax bracket, because the longer you wait, the longer, it could be higher taxes you have to pay all around. So, you just got to take the plunge, Josh.
You do. And I think looking out, I know the other scenario that can be kind of a surprise for folks is inheriting funds, right? Maybe we inherit an IRA from our parents and we didn't think we were going to have a tax issue, but now we got mom and dad's savings too, or mom or dad's savings, right? And this can kind of compound. Certainly, we don't know. We might not know all of the details of our parents' finances, but if we think that that might be coming in, that might be another reason to accelerate those Roth conversions, especially in lower income years, whether that's late in the career when we're working less or early in retirement when maybe we're not yet claiming Social Security or those RMDs aren't necessary yet. So we want to keep in mind within our tax plan those shifts over time. These temporary cuts now are something that won't last forever. So again, take advantage of it sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
So, Wendy, I think Roths are a big conversation piece. We see lots of articles about it, and I hear a lot of misconceptions from folks when we talk with them, whether it's on comments on the YouTube channel or they call into the office or attend a class. A common one that I hear is that I make too much to convert. And this is a common misconception because you can make as much money as you want and still do a conversion. It's the contributions that we have income limits. So if you've already saved money in an IRA or 401k, we can always convert that money over. Now, as you mentioned, it's the pain of getting that money over, right? If we're in a higher tax bracket, it's going to be really painful, right? But kind of like exercise, right? Sometimes we got to push through that pain to get to the goal at the end. Another common one that we hear from folks is Roth conversions don't make sense in retirement. And most of that is framed around my timeline is shorter. I argue that quite heavily, especially with married couples, because there's a high probability that one of the two of you are going to live a long time, right? We also mentioned the tax efficiency for children. So when I think of my family, my grandmother lived till age 97. My great-grandmother was 93. So, 93, 97. I think my mom's going to make it to 100, right?
All right.
She might disagree. She's healthy, so I think she'll make it there. Her timeline's a really long time. Those early years of retirement, we have 30 plus years potentially to get the tax gain from doing Roth conversions. So for many folks, it makes sense to take advantage of that in the early years. Sometimes we'll also hear from folks, I've already started my RMDs. It doesn't make sense to do a Roth conversion. I would push back on that as well. If you're married, maybe your spouse is a little bit younger and their RMDs are going to come into play here in the next group of years, and that might push you into a higher tax bracket. Again, we want to look at our long-term tax impact. We don't know what tax laws are going to be in the future, right? But we do know what current law is, and I don't think anyone's going to come into office and say, no more taxes on your IRAs, right?
No, that's
we're not going to erase it.
Very unlikely.
The more we can manage that and kick it down, we
Wouldn't
can get there.
that be a great day, though? I can't get that out of my head now. No more taxes on IRAs.
You know what? Yeah. It could be a campaign, right? That might be a way to win an election, you know?
You might be able to win an election that way.
Yeah, no more taxability, period. Don't know how that's going to work, but we could play that game, you know?
Let's talk.
I think a common one that we'll hear too, and maybe this is a consideration for you too, Wendy. You have that old plan, and you think of it as all or nothing, right? That old 401k plan, I have to convert it all, right? You don't. You can choose any amount, right? You could convert a smaller amount. And I think that's where tax planning comes into play because it helps you identify a logical amount, right? We had one client that I walked through 3 scenarios. She's a good saver, so she doesn't need her future RMDs, but it's going to push her into the 22% tax bracket. This year, she's in the 0% tax bracket.
That's the best
So I said,
one.
hey, we can do a Roth conversion that will still keep you in the 0% tax bracket. Here's one in the 12, and this is where you're going to be in a couple years anyways. So if we do the largest of the 3, this is where you're going to be anyways, we are still able, in her case, to take advantage of the new senior deduction, right? So we're getting a little bit more over to the Roth IRA, and we're starting to levelize those taxes. So if she has some really good growth years leading up to her RMDs, where her balance is larger than we're projecting now, this will help hedge against that, right? In most cases, we don't want to pay significantly more in taxes in a given year if they're only going to be at a lower level in the future, right? We want to manage that. I think the IRMA limits, one of the things that we've been doing more planning around too, is if your RMDs are going to force you into a higher cost of Medicare, we might want to accelerate those Roth conversions a little bit heavier, maybe pay slightly more in taxes, because that break-even point with Medicare increased charges through IRMA might make it logical that, hey, your net out-of-pocket cost will be lower in the future, so let's go ahead and accelerate those.
Yep, let's do it.
Do you have lots of great ideas about year-end tax planning now?
I do. A little too much. A little too many ideas.
Okay.
I still like that campaign, though. Let's talk about the campaign. No new taxes. No taxes at all.
Yeah. Wendy and Josh for president, right? I don't think we can both do that. Anyway.
No.
Not a job I want either, in fairness, you know?
Exactly.
Leave it to the... Anyways. I think as we're thinking through our year-end planning, we just spent a lot of time on Roths. Let's think through if it makes sense to do a Roth conversion. Let's also think about our charitable giving, right? If we have excess RMDs, or if we know our RMDs are going to be more than we need in the future, and we're 70 and a half this year, we're not forced to take the money out yet, we could do a QCD too. So thinking through those QCDs, any charitable giving there, we want to do that before the end of the year. We want to watch out for those thresholds, right? If we're on the limit of starting to pay more for our Medicare via IRMA, or we're in that phase out of the new senior deduction, we might want to look for some ways to reduce taxes here by the end of the year. You've worked really hard to get to this point, right? If we're talking about excess RMDs, that means you saved a lot of money. So great job. Let's make sure that you're the most efficient with it, right? So we need to think through that long-term duration. If it means passing money on to the next generation, let's look for tax-efficient ways to do so and not leave our children with a tax burden in the future as well.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So I encourage you to be a little bit proactive here. think through your tax planning through the end of the year. If you have questions, feel free to use the calendar link in the schedule notes to schedule a 15-minute call with our team. We can answer some of those tax questions for you and help get you on the right path to take advantage of these tax deductions. Wendy, thank you so much for joining today. Through the technical difficulties, I think we've done it.
Woohoo!
So congrats. Woo, woo. And until next time, remember to retire with intent so you can live your golden years with the happiness and excitement you deserve.